It started with thunder. Not the distant kind that warns you ahead of time. The kind that cracks the sky wide open and makes you flinch like it's right outside your window. I was standing in my tiny kitchen, stirring instant noodles for dinner, when the power flickered and the lights went out. Again. Great, I muttered to myself, feeling around for my phone flashlight. I lived in a small rental cottage at the edge of Crestwood, the part of town no one talked about unless they were giving warnings. The landlord barely kept the place standing, but it was all I could afford after losing my receptionist job 3 months ago. I had just found the flashlight when I heard it, the knock. 3 sharp raps on the door. I froze. No one visited me out here, not at this hour, and definitely not in weather like this. I crept to the window, pulling the curtain back just a little. That's when I saw him. A man standing on my porch, drenched from head to toe. No umbrella, no jacket, just a soaked dress shirt clinging to his skin and a leather bag hanging from his shoulder. He looked exhausted, like he had walked for miles in the rain. I should have locked the door, called someone, ignored him. But something about the way he stood there, shoulders slumped, head slightly bowed, stopped me. Against every warning in my head, I opened the door just a crack. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my foot pressed against the frame, ready to slam it shut. He looked up, blinking like the light surprised him. His voice was low, almost apologetic. I'm sorry to bother you. I got caught in the storm. My car broke down a few blocks back. There's no signal out here." He paused, glancing down at his soaked shoes. "Could I just stand here for a minute? Get out of the rain?" I should have said no, but I didn't. Instead, I opened the door wider. "Come inside. You'll get sick out there." He stepped inside slowly, like he couldn't believe I'd actually let him in. I shut the door behind him, locking it quickly out of habit. "You're soaked," I said, grabbing a towel from the hook by the door. "Here, dry off." "Thank you," he murmured, taking it with shaking hands. He rubbed his hair, then pressed the towel against his face, breathing deeply like it was the first warmth he'd felt in hours. I stood awkwardly, unsure what to do next. "Do you want to sit down?" He nodded, moving toward the old armchair in the corner of my tiny living room. He sank into it with a tired groan, placing his bag carefully on the floor beside him. "Can I get you something?" "Tea? Coffee?" I asked, still feeling like this was some kind of weird dream. He looked up, his dark eyes finally meeting mine. "If it's not too much trouble, tea would be great." I hurried to the kitchen, half glancing over my shoulder like I expected him to disappear. While the kettle boiled, I stole another look at him. His clothes, though soaked and wrinkled, looked expensive. His shoes, though scuffed, were designer. His bag had gold-plated hardware on the straps. I bit my lip. "So, what's your name?" He hesitated. "Daniel," he finally answered. "Daniel Ross." I nodded, pouring the hot water over the tea bag. "I'm Callie." "Thank you again, Callie," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to scare you showing up like that." I carried the mug to him, setting it on the table beside the armchair. "It's okay. This neighborhood's not exactly famous for visitors. You sure your car's just a few blocks away?" He nodded. Dead battery. No signal. I started walking to find help, and then the storm hit harder than I expected. Something about his voice. It didn't sound like someone used to being stranded. "So, what do you do, Daniel?" I asked, trying to fill the silence. He glanced away like he was deciding how much to say. I'm in property management." I raised a brow. "Around here?" He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Something like that." The storm raged on for hours. I made us both grilled cheese sandwiches, and we sat at the small kitchen table talking softly while the rain pounded the roof like a drum. He asked about my life. I told him about losing my job, about barely making rent, about how I was thinking of moving to another city to start over. But I was scared. He listened like no one else ever had. By midnight, the storm had eased into a light drizzle. He stood up, stretching like every muscle in his body hurt. "I should get going." he said softly. I've already taken up too much of your night. I walked him to the door. Are you sure you're okay to walk back? He nodded, glancing down at me. I'll be fine. But can I ask you one more favor? I tensed slightly. What kind of favor? He smiled. Meet me here tomorrow. Noon. I'd like to thank you properly. Before I could ask what he meant, he stepped off the porch and disappeared into the night. I didn't sleep much. Something about him lingered in my mind. Who just shows up like that? Who leaves like that? The next day, I waited. Noon came, and so did he. But this time, he wasn't in a soaked dress shirt. He was in a tailored suit, stepping out of a black SUV with tinted windows, surrounded by 2 security guards. I blinked, frozen in my doorway as he approached. Callie, he greeted, smiling wider this time. I'd like to officially introduce myself. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a silver business card. Daniel Ross, CEO, Crestwood Holdings. My jaw dropped. Crestwood Holdings owned half the city, hotels, restaurants, malls, even apartment complexes. I had seen that logo on signs all over town. I stared at him, heart pounding. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. His smile faded into something more serious. Because I needed to know who you were, before you knew who I was. I stood frozen in the doorway, clutching the business card like it might disappear if I blinked too hard. Daniel, if that was even his real name, looked so different now, confident, polished, like he belonged on the cover of a magazine, not soaking wet on my porch. I swallowed hard. So, you just... what? Tested me. He winced at the word. Not exactly. I didn't plan to end up at your door that night. But when you let me in, when you treated me like a human being without knowing who I was, I knew I couldn't just walk away. Why? I whispered, feeling a knot tighten in my chest. He took a deep breath. Because Crestwood Holdings is expanding. We're building a new community outreach program, one that supports people living on the edge. People like you described last night. I've interviewed consultants, hired experts, but none of them spoke with half the heart you did over a simple cup of tea. I frowned, unsure where this was going. I need someone who understands real struggle, he continued. Someone who doesn't sugarcoat it. Someone who's lived it. I crossed my arms. And you think that's me? He nodded. I know it is. I shook my head slowly. Daniel, I appreciate the kindness, but I'm just surviving. I'm not a leader. I don't belong in boardrooms. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. Maybe you don't see it yet, Callie. But you belong exactly where change starts, right at the heart of it. I bit my lip, heart pounding. Was this real? Or was I just another charity project to ease his billionaire guilt? Before I could respond, one of the security guards approached him. Sir, you have that meeting downtown in 20 minutes. Daniel turned back to me, pulling out a pen. He wrote something on the back of his card and handed it to me. My personal number. Call me when you're ready to believe in yourself as much as I do. And just like that, he was gone again. I stared at that silver card for hours after he left. What was I supposed to do with this? Call him. Pretend I had any business sitting at tables with people like him. I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, I decided to clear my head and take a walk to the small grocery store down the block. But just as I reached the corner, someone grabbed my arm. I gasped, spinning around. It was Brandon, my landlord's son. Sleazy, always hanging around like a vulture. He leaned in too close, reeking of cheap cologne. Easy there, Callie, he sneered. You've been real quiet lately. Rent's still due, you know. I pulled my arm away. I told your dad I'd have it by Friday. He laughed coldly. Yeah? Doesn't look like you're working much these days. I stiffened. That's none of your business. He leaned in again, lowering his voice. Actually, it is my business. Dad's thinking about kicking you out early. Says he's got a buyer for this dump. Someone who wants to turn this whole block into condos. My heart sank. Who? Brandon smirked. Some rich suit from Crestwood Holdings. My stomach dropped. Daniel? I whispered. Brandon nodded, tapping my nose like I was a child. Looks like your little visitor already owns half this city. Guess he'll own your house soon too. He walked off, whistling like he hadn't just ripped the ground out from under me. I paced the floor for hours that night, staring at the card, running Brandon's words over and over in my head. Had Daniel lied? Had this all been a setup? Had he really come here to take my home and turn my life into a publicity stunt? I finally snapped, grabbing my phone and dialing his number before I could second-guess myself. He answered on the first ring. "Callie," he said softly, like he'd been waiting. I didn't even let him speak. "Are you buying this block?" I blurted out. Silence. "Tell me the truth, Daniel," I demanded, voice shaking. "Brandon told me you're planning to turn this neighborhood into luxury condos. Is that why you showed up at my door? To get me to trust you before you took everything?" He sighed heavily. "Callie, answer me," I snapped, tears stinging my eyes. "I was," he admitted quietly. "The deal's been in place for months, but that was before I met you, before I saw the people actually living here." "I'm trying," he finally said. "But it's not just me. There are investors, partners, people who won't back down without a fight." I felt the tears fall freely now. "You should have told me." "I wanted to," he whispered. "I was trying to find a way to fix it first." I hung up before I could hear another word, because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. I just didn't know who I could trust anymore, or if I was already too late to stop what was coming.